YouTube, what's up, man? It's your boy Richardson from Minimum Wage to Millionaire. If you're new here, welcome. But if you've been here, welcome back. So, I just wanted to give you guys a video about really to express the idea that I am debt-free, finally out of the debt game, the debt system, the debt cycle, and I'm very happy and expressive of it. So, I've touched upon it just a little bit when I did my last video with the net worth update at the fact that I am, sorry guys, let me just get this camera, okay. At the fact that I am debt-free and what it means to be debt-free, and also my journey to become debt-free. So let me just start from, I guess, when I learned about debt and when I got into debt in the first place. So I was about 17, 18, high school, senior in high school. That's when I first got my first credit card, which was the Discovery credit card, because I was under the impression, like many of you guys, that credit was a necessity, that credit is an important part of life. You need credit, Richardson. You can't get away with it. You can't, I was even under the impression that you couldn't even book a hotel without a credit card, which I'll touch upon those things later in this video, and then I might spin it off to a future video. So I opened a credit card with Discover, built my credit. Just to give you a little context, is that I've had my credit cards for nearly a decade. I closed all my credit cards last year, and I got out of debt a few weeks ago, like end of September. And from there, I just started opening credit cards within my 20, spending it, paying off. I was using it responsibly, so I was paying my credit cards in full at the end of the statement, so I didn't get charged any interest. So I've never paid any credit card interest, which is a good thing. So some people may look at that and ask, well, Richardson, if you've paid off your credit cards on time in full and you were able to amass all these credit card points and stuff, which I did, I'm grateful for them. So why would you stop? What would be your reason for stopping? It was when I started my walk with Christ. I want to say 2022, end of 2022, beginning of 2023, when I started my walk with Christ. Right now I'm on my third year, or I'm approaching 3 years of my walk with Christ. Comes with a lot of moments, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but nonetheless, I'm still walking. Picked up my cross. Again, the Bible says a righteous man will fall 7 times and get up. So we got to get up. But when I started my walk with Christ, naturally, I would peer into the Bible and what the Bible and what God has to say about really being in debt and really how to manage money, because the money doesn't belong to us, right? Everything in the world belongs to the Lord, and that we are just called to be stewards of his resources. So what does the Bible say about money, or specifically debt? There's probably one of the best verses on debt that I've ever heard. Really one of the best, I guess, statements on debt. And it is from the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 7. And it says that the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Keyword on slave, right? And I thought to myself, why would being in debt be attributed to slavery? Or why would being compared to slavery? And I thought about, it does kind of make sense, right? Because if I gave you a loan, let's say $100 loan, and I tell you the terms, hey, I want my money back by Friday. I want, you have to pay me all of it back up front, whether it's in cash. I decide, as the lender, I decide how you pay me back, the times, the terms, everything, right? And you're the receiver, or you're the debtor, right, of my $100. Well, you don't really have a say. Because if you need my money, you're either going to comply to it, or you could say, I'm not going to do it, and then you don't get the $100. So it actually makes sense. Like, yeah, you are a slave to the lender, because the lender controls the terms. And as I, again, continue my walk with Christ, naturally, I would stumble, I would want to learn how to pretty much build up my finances. I came across people, I'm sure many of you guys know who this person is, but his name is Dave Ramsey. He has a popular radio show, been going on for like maybe 20 some 30 years. And I'm sure you guys heard of him. And he has a very fascinating book that I've read. I think it was called The Total Money Makeover. And with that book, basically Dave Ramsey breaks everything down into the 7 baby steps. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think it was like $1,000 emergency fund, pay off your debt except the mortgage, then fully fund your emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. Then I think it's 15% into your 401k or your investments. Then I think it's pay for your kids' college, then pay off the mortgage early. And then 7 is to live and give like no one else. I really emphasize with the last part, live and give like no one else. But I'll put that in a future video. So I kind of formulated that structure. And I realized that, you know what, I don't want to be part of debt. So I did the Dave Ramsey steps again. I did $1,000, then paid off my debt. But I wanted to go a little step further. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to just pay off the consumer debt. I want to pay all my debts because I don't want to be a slave to the lender. I don't want to owe anybody money. I not if I don't need to, right? And then that's when I went down even a deeper rabbit hole and I realized, well, why do I need credit? What is the reason for credit? And what I've come to realize that credit is just convenience. It's just, hey, do you want to get something that you can't afford today? Cool, I'll give it to you, assuming you pay me back on these terms. That's all credit is. And I think about it. And this is a great thing that I brought up Dave Ramsey, because Dave Ramsey talked about how you don't even need, a credit card, as I mentioned earlier, to get a hotel. And I thought to myself, like, no, that's kind of ridiculous, because you always hear people get credit cards, put it on a hotel. And then I thought about it, and I did my research. I'm like, yeah, you don't need a credit card to get a hotel. And it goes even further. Well, you don't need a credit card to rent like a car, right? Now, I want to make sure I understand, make sure I lay everything out, is that even though you don't necessarily need a credit card to rent those things and you could use it with the debit card, when you use a debit card, they will charge a higher incidental, right? Or some type of pre-authorization hold on the card of the charges to make sure that you, of course, have the money to cover it. So, you know, it's not going to be exactly the same, but you can book those things with a debit card. And even when it comes to renting an apartment, because again, I have aspirations of renting. I still live with my parents. I'm 27, still live with my parents. But now that I'm debt free, one of my goals for 2026 is to move out of my parents' house. I'm not rushing for it. Obviously, I want to make sure that I take my time and do everything well with that. But I eventually want to move out of my parents' house. And I was even looking to that, and some of these landlords don't even require you necessarily to have credit, right? What they really do require is, okay, do you have the cash? Do you have first month's, last month as a security deposit? And do you have like consistent income? Usually it's like you need to have 3 times the rent in income on a monthly basis to be able to rent. If you can comfortably have those things, or if you do have those things, then you'll be able to rent. So again, a lot of the reasons that we're being sold to get into credit in the first place, we don't actually even need. So then I'm like, well, why would I keep playing the debt game? Why am I willing to be a slave to the lender if I don't have to? And then I remember a verse from the Bible. I don't remember where it was at in the Bible. I have to figure it out and check. And maybe I'll put it in the description below. But it was something where it's like, if you're not able to manage a little, then how would you be expected to manage a lot? So if you're going into debt for the little things because you can't afford it, because again, as we established, the part of credit is, hey, I don't have the money, but you spot me and then I'll pay you back on your terms. But if you're not able to do things on the smaller things, then why would you, then you wouldn't be able to get to the bigger things. So overall, just that, and my whole mindset on debt has just changed, and it led me to wanting to aggressively get out of debt and be free from debt and no longer needing debt. Now, it hurt a lot because when you get out of debt, or when you aspire to get out of debt, and again, I closed my credit cards last year, you're closing down your credit cards. A lot of us have been trained that the credit cards are like backup emergency. So when you're closing down those credit cards, you're closing down those emergencies. But then again, even that is addressed with the idea of having an emergency fund. When you have an emergency fund, you don't need to go into debt. In fact, debt would actually make it worse because you're going into debt, right, for something that you couldn't afford, which means that when you're trying to pay off that debt amount for the following month before interest, the likelihood of you getting interest is a lot more because, you know, you couldn't pay off, you couldn't save for that emergency in the first place. So how are you going to save up to pay off the debt that you just used on the credit for the prior month? You're not going to. So having an emergency fund solves that issue because now it's like, okay, if I have an emergency, let me just go straight to my emergency. And now that I have been debt-free for just a few weeks, it feels very good. Even my car, I had my car, I was making payments on my car up until I think April or May of this year. And driving my car, it's again 2013 Toyota Camry. It's not turning heads. Got some scratches on the paint. One of my lights is like out of the bottom part of the lights are out of the car, but it's still used. It's still good, but it feels better because I don't owe anybody, right? It's my car, the title, my name, registration, my name. Everything is my name. There's no lien tied to it. And for me, I think debt freedom, once I've come to this point, has just been really the most best and the most eye-opening aspect of my financial journey thus far. Now, the other part would be aggressively investing, which I will get into once I build back my emergency fund. So stay tuned to that. So I just wanted to touch you guys about my journey, how I went from, you know, just having all those credit cards, aggressively paying it down, and pretty much just clearing myself of all debt. And just to give you guys, I probably should have said this in the beginning of the film, but I'm not going to cut or edit my videos. And that is that my version of debt freedom is a complete absence of all debt. So some people would describe debt free as, you know, I have a mortgage, but I'm clear of consumer debt. Or some people would say, hey, I just have some student loans, but I'm clear of all credit card debt. Some would say, well, I use credit cards, but I pay them off every month, so I technically are not holding debt. My definition, or how I would see debt freedom, is what debt freedom truly is as definition, which is freedom of debt. And that's what I have. That's what I love. And I'll talk about it in future videos, probably the next couple of videos, about what I use as an alternative to credit cards and how I was able to get around and why. I touched upon it a little bit in my net worth video, but I'll expand upon it in the future video. So thank you guys. Just wanted to come out here and say, it's starting to pour and rain, so I might have to get something to eat. I'm at the Taco Bell. I'm feeling a little hungry. Probably should eat Taco Bell, but hey, listen, we all got our habits, and some habits are harder to break than others. So thank you guys for everything. It's Richardson from Minimum Wage to Millionaire, signing out. God bless you guys. Have a nice day.